Today, I'm going to show you how to build your own outdoor furniture, starting with this chair. Now, this is the vibe that we're going for, but we are going to DIY it so that we don't have to have this price tag associated with it because that is an absurd amount of money. I followed a set of plans from the Woodshop Diaries. I will link her website below. Go ahead and buy those plans. It's totally worth it. But we're going to go over the reality of building this chair because this was my first one and it was not great. The job got done, but not great. And then this was my second one. So I'm going to go over what I learned and all of the do's and don'ts. All of the lumber for this project cost me a whopping $55, and then it was about another $50 for the screws and the wood glue needed, but I will be able to use those for the additional couch and chair that I'm building. And in case you're new here, these two are the real star of the show. They are my biggest fans, and you will see them often in my videos. You will definitely need a miter saw for this project because many of the cuts are a 20-degree angle. For the base of the chair, you use two 4x4s, and this is going to make it really nice and sturdy. I cut the pieces out at the exact same time so that I could make sure that they were identical to one another. Now, since I don't have all of the fancy equipment like a lot of the DIY YouTubers do, I'm going to show you the reality of doing this project if you don't have one of those wood strippers, I think is what they're called. But if a company wants to send me one, I would be happy to take one. So the reality is I had to hand sand all of these pieces with my sander, and it probably is my least favorite part of this entire project, but nonetheless is necessary so that people don't get splinters. Once that is done, we are ready to start building this thing. And the first step is going to be the armrest on the underside. You're going to need to do extra large pocket holes. And so you're going to need an extra large jig set in order to do this. This definitely takes a little bit of muscle, but I just figure this is my workout for the day since I have been really lazy and haven't been getting to the gym as much as I should. But it's summer and I just want to be outside. Then it's time to put the pieces together, and something I learned from the first attempt at the chair was how important wood glue is. And then I went heavy on the wood glue and realized that was way too much. Needed to run in the house to get some paper towels, and the dogs were stoked, thinking that something exciting was happening, but it wasn't. So what I would also recommend when it comes to doing this wood glue is to securing it exactly where you want it to be and letting it dry. If you let it dry for a few minutes, it stays nice and secure, and then your pocket screws are really easy to do. If you don't wait for it to dry, it's a little bit squirrely, and it's harder to keep exactly in the position that you want it to be. And you will need 4-inch outdoor pocket screws for this. I'll link everything that I needed and used for this project in my Amazon store in the video description below. Once the front piece was done, then I did wood glue and balanced it on the back leg, letting it dry before I went through and did the wood screws. But I did both legs at the same time. This just helped me to make sure that I was doing the pieces identical to one another. Okay, moving on to what I think is actually the hardest piece of this entire project, and it is the middle piece of each leg. And the reason that this piece is hard to me is because one side is angled to 4 degrees and another side is angled to 24 degrees, and you have to make sure that it sits pretty much exactly the same on each leg because this is what you're then going to secure the seat pieces into. So I went back and forth a million times, it felt like, measuring and making sure that both sides were identical to one another. Then same as the base pieces, I used wood glue to glue them together first so then that the pocket hole screws were easier to do. And I also forgot to mention that these take 3-inch pocket hole screws, which you can do with this awesome jig set from Craig. Now I just want to do pocket hole screws all the time because it's my favorite part of this project, probably. These pieces secure in with 2.5-inch pocket hole screws, and remember to make sure that they are outdoor grade. And I probably should have mentioned in the beginning, you will need a drill and an impact driver for this project. And moving on to the next step in this project is securing the back of the chair. So in order to do this, you need to make sure that it is angled a very specific way because both of them need to be the same because this is what the back slats are going to secure into. For this piece, you're going to want to drill some pilot holes since you're putting a 4x4 into a 4x4, and you will need to use 4.5-inch just regular wood screws. And this is another section that if you can, let the wood glue dry because then it will really secure it in place and it won't move around like that. I was in a hurry this day, so I kept having to readjust it to make sure that it was the same. This part of the project calls for a 1x2. Now that I've done the project, I actually would recommend doing a 2x2 for this part. As far as placement goes, just make sure that you have enough room for the 2x4 to be on the front of the chair. And then I went ahead and did 3 pilot holes and then secured it with just the 2.5-inch wood screws. This is what at the end of the project you're going to screw the slats that you lean against on the chair into. All right, guys, I promise the hardest part of the project is behind us and we are now on the home stretch. For the width of the chair, this is going to depend on how big you want your cushions to be. So I ordered 24 by 24 inch cushions off of Amazon. I'll also link those. In the building plans from the Woodshop Diaries, she actually shows the measurements at 23 and a half, but my cushions measured out at truly 24 inches. So take that into account, and then you can decide how long you want your middle section of the chair to be. That being said, you are going to cut out 5 pieces of the 2x4, sand them down, and then do pocket holes in each of those. Then you are going to start by securing the very front one in to the 4x4. I went ahead and did the wood glue and then secured it with my 2.5-inch wood screws, and then do the very back slat. So notice that one is vertical and one is horizontal. Then also, just for reference, this is something I didn't do with chair number 1, which is why I think it was so screwed up. I made sure that both of the legs were exactly identical. As you can see, they are perfect. So once that is done, then you can go ahead and set the chair on top of the other leg. I was also building this during the Olympics, so I kept getting hella distracted in the middle of this project, which is probably why it took me several days in order to finish this. Once you have your chair perfectly lined up, you can go ahead and do your 2.5-inch screws. And just like that, you have an entire base of a chair done. And I would recommend pulling it off of your workspace at that point in time because now it's starting to get pretty heavy. Then you're going to secure the remaining 3 slats, and this is the base of your chair. I just went ahead and eyeballed this and just kind of marked where I wanted each of the slats to be. Once you have one side secured, you can flip it over and then secure the other side with your 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. For the backrest of the chair, I would wait until this part is done and then go ahead and measure to see how long each of the slats are going to need to be, because it is possible that at the very top it might be a little bit wider than at the very bottom. I wanted to be really particular about this part, so I kept using my level to make sure that I was securing the slats in completely level. With this section, it is kind of difficult because you need to do pilot holes in order for the 2.5-inch just regular screws to screw into that 1x2 section. And you got to be really careful to make sure that it is far enough on the outside, but it doesn't split the 1x2. That's why I would go ahead and use a 2x2 for that back section. And this is when I'm grateful for my volleyball court lights, because I'm able to continue working on my projects even when it's dark. And the moment we've all been waiting for, this is the final product. I'm really happy with how my second attempt at this chair turned out, but I do need your guys' help with something. I cannot decide what color to stain it. I am torn between staining it black or having it a natural wood color. And just for reference, this is what it looks like with the cushions on. So I think I'm leaning towards a natural wood color, but please let me know what you think would look best in the comments. I'm stoked with how this turned out. I think it's really going to elevate my outdoor space, and it was only around $100.